We begin with Allah's blessed name. We praise Him and we glorify Him as He ought to be praised and glorified. And we pray for peace and for blessings on all His noble messengers, and in particular on the last of them all, the blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Brothers and sisters, or brothers and sister, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight is devoted to only questions and answers. And I have a huge number of questions. So we will, because my bahasa is not good, so we will use only the English language. And those who do not understand, afterwards you can explain to them the answer. And the first question, and it is a question which is constantly posed to me, so I would like a chance to answer it so that I don't have to get emails coming. The question is, Sheikh, why do you no longer visit Britain? And why do you no longer visit the United States and Canada and Europe and Australia and these countries and India and now even Pakistan? There are large numbers of Muslims in these countries who would dearly love for you to come. Even France, where they speak French. And they are constantly inviting me, and I am constantly declining. And they want to know why. And my answer is that I do so for the same reason that Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam made hijrah from Mecca. Why did he leave Mecca? Answer: because of a problem of security. And I choose not to go to these countries because of a problem of security. That's my first answer. And I should have the freedom to decide what is security for me. But there's also a second reason. And it is this: that in these countries you have governments which have sent their armed forces into Iraq, into Afghanistan and other countries. And these armed forces are waging unjust war on my people, barbarian war on my people, war with no law of ethics, war which does not discriminate between combatants and non-combatants, war in which you kill women and kill children and destroy homes and kill innocent people, and you don't care at all about it. You call that collateral damage. Islam has a higher standard of morality than that. Islam has something far superior to offer to mankind, an ethics of warfare which is far superior to your barbarian ethics of warfare. And so, out of respect for the blood of my people, out of respect for those who are fighting you so courageously, sometimes only with stones in their hands. Out of respect for them and in solidarity with them, I choose not to put my foot in your territory. I do not do so with arrogance. I do so with profound sadness, because this civilization which today controls the world is now being hijacked and being taken on a road which will destroy all of mankind. The next question is, why don't you visit Singapore? And while many of you already know it, there are some who do not. And so let me make an explanatory comment. I have had profound affection for Singapore because my teacher's teacher, Maulana Abdul Alim Siddiqui rahimahullah, visited Singapore many times in the 1920s, 1930s. And indeed, there is a masjid in Singapore which has been built and named Masjid Abdul Alim Siddiqui rahimahullah. And his student, Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari, who was my teacher, he was sent to Singapore in 1935 when he was just 21 years of age to spend 1 year in Singapore preaching Islam. And because I am the third in the line, I always had this desire in my heart to visit Singapore and to continue the work that they had begun. I visited Singapore for the first time in 1988, and I was very warmly welcomed by the Muslim community. And I continued visiting Singapore until 9/11. And by that time, by Allah's kindness and grace, I had already become perhaps the most popular speaker on Islam in Singapore, in the English language. But when 9/11 took place, the Muslim community of Singapore responded by flooding to my lectures in such large numbers that no hall could accommodate them. And people would have to go back home because there was no space in a huge hall. The government of Singapore responded through the organization that they control by then denying me a permit to speak. That is Singaporean democracy. So I'm not allowed to speak. I can enter the country, but I cannot speak. Shame on you, Singapore. Shame on you. I don't speak with bitterness. I speak with sadness that you should deny a scholar of Islam the freedom to speak. So then we chose to use a small room that could accommodate about 40-50 people. And I would give a talk for about 45 minutes, and they would leave, and then another group would come. But there were 300-400 people outside waiting to come. So then I got a message, you're breaking the law. Well then, we started giving talks in people's apartment, in the sitting room with about a dozen people present. And then finally they decided that they cannot allow me to enter the country. So the only country in the world, the only one in the whole world, which denies me entry into the country is Singapore. And I have a message for Singapore. You have pursued a terribly foolish policy, terribly foolish, in becoming Israel's greatest ally in this region. It was terribly foolish of you to become little Israel. because you were not looking far enough ahead. You could not anticipate that Israel is one day going to wage great wars. And from the time Israel starts these great wars, this entire region in which Singapore is located would be in flames. In flames. Those great wars are about to start. Maybe this year, maybe next year. And when those great wars start, I feel sad for you, Singapore. What is the fate which now awaits you? The next question is, what is your problem with Harun Yahya? I have never spoken anything about Harun Yahya and his connection with Imam al-Mahdi. I get lots of emails from people in many parts of the world telling me this and that about Harun Yahya and Imam al-Mahdi. That is a red herring. Red herring in English means a diversion, something to divert your attention, not important. What is important for me about Harun Yahya is that he has become so influential around the world of Islam in lightning speed, with a huge number of books and a huge number of documentaries, all on cable television. And his books for children also in schools, as though one mastermind is at work to influence the thinking of the entire ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. As a consequence of which, I have to pay more attention to Harun Yahya than to other scholars. He's a very influential man. And my first problem is, never in the history of Islam has Islamic scholarship ever hidden its name behind some pen name. That's not a part of our civilization. When a scholar of Islam stands up to preach or to teach or to write, he identifies himself so he can be held responsible for what he says and what he writes. And so I find it very suspicious that someone should depart from this norm of scholarly conduct and hide behind a fictitious name. Subsequently, we were told that this Harun Yahya is actually a Turkish brother in Turkey with a particular Turkish name. Whether he is or is not a matter for me to pass judgment over tonight. But I want to direct attention to one book of his entitled Imam al-Mahdi and the End Times. And when I read that book, I was profoundly disturbed, because he expressed views in that book which appears to me to be views that could also come from the Israeli Mossad. This is what he says. And if I am wrong, I invite him to correct me. That when Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns, when the Prophet Jesus returns, the Quran tells us that the Jews and Christians, the Ahlul Kitab, will have to believe in him. And so, according to Harun Yahya, there is an end of history in which Jews and Christians and Muslims will all believe in Nabi Isa alayhi salam, and as a consequence will become a fraternity, a brotherhood, all living together with fraternal feelings for each other. And he continues to argue that if if this is what is going to happen at that time, then should we not now reach out to Jews and to Christians to build that fraternity now? Oh yes, that would please the Israeli Mossad Allah. This is false. This is not what Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has told us. And this is not the proper interpretation of the Quran. This is false. This is deceptive. What is going to happen when Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns is that a people who were acting in the same way that Pharaoh acted, waging war on Islam, waging war on those who have faith in Allah. A people who had become oppressors, who were arrogant oppressors, who had power and were using that power to oppress. That people would now suffer the same fate that Pharaoh suffered when he was drowning. The Quran tells us that when Pharaoh was drowning, the veils, of course, were removed from his eyes, and he then recognized that Musa alayhi salam and Banu Israel had the truth. And their God was the true God, and he, Pharaoh, was not God. And so he declared his faith in the God of Banu Israel. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded, and this is in Surah to Yunus, and I invite Harun Yahya to kindly look up the verse. Al-an, now Pharaoh, وَقَدْ عَصَيْتَ قَبْلُ, and before this you were in arrogant rejection. وَكُنْتَ مِنَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ, and you were committing fasad, you were oppressing. فَالْيَوْمَ نُنَجِّيكَ بِبَدَنِكَ, this day we have decided to preserve your physical body. لِتَكُونَ لِمَنْ خَلْفَكَ آيَةً, that your physical body, when it is rediscovered, when it resurfaces in the historical process, would be a sign for a people to come after you. What is that sign? The sign is this, that since they will live the way you lived, they will die the way you died. A divine intervention caused your destruction. A divine intervention will cause their destruction. And you went into the hellfire despite your declaration of faith. And they will also declare their faith, and it will be of no help to them, and they'll also go into the hellfire. The body of Pharaoh was discovered, and the world acknowledges it. Somewhere around 1897, I believe. I can be wrong by a few years. But the Zionist movement was created in the same year that the body of Pharaoh was discovered. And so the sign is very clear. For those Jews and for those Christians who are supporters of the State of Israel, for the Zionist Jews and the Zionist Christians, when Jesus comes back, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, at that time you will have to declare your faith, but it will be of no benefit to you. There is no fraternity between us and you at that time. Harun Yahya, you are wrong, you're misleading the people. Instead of a fraternity, Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam told us what is going to happen at that time. And I invite Harun Yahya to quote this hadith, if he has the courage and the integrity to do so. The Prophet said, the hadith is in Sahih Bukhari, he can check it up. لَتُقَاتِلُنَّ الْيَهُودِ, you'll most certainly fight the Jews. وَلَتَقْتُلُنَّهُمْ, and you'll most certainly defeat them. حَتَّى يَقُولُ الْحَجَرُ, at that time, even the stones will speak. Ya Muslim, O Muslim, هَذَا يَهُودِيٌّ وَرَائِي, there's a Jew hiding behind me. Oh, so they'll be on the run on that day. Is the Prophet speaking about all Jews? Oh, come on. You should have a little bit more intelligence than that. No, he's not speaking about those Jews who are standing with us and opposing Israeli oppression. He's not speaking about those Jews who refuse to be Zionists. No. He's speaking about those Jews who are oppressors. They'll be hiding behind trees and stones. هَذَا يَهُودِيٌّ وَرَائِي فَتَعَالَ فَاقْتُلْ, so come and kill him. These are the words of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And it's a little late in the historical process to try to erase those words now. And so what has been written in that book is false. And the world of Islam must be warned to reject this view presented by Harun Yahya, a view with which the Israeli Mossad would be very comfortable. The next question. In my book, Jerusalem in the Quran, I dwelt at length with the hadith of Tamim al-Dari. Tamim al-Dari came to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in Medina and narrated something about Dajjal. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam then said to the people, sit down, I have something to say to you. Tamim al-Dari came to me and narrated something about Dajjal which confirms what I have been saying to you. And then we get the event from the lips of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. In that hadith, Dajjal is located on an island. In that hadith, Dajjal is located on an island. To save time, I'm not going to give you the arguments in support of my conclusion. The island is Britain. So I say that when Dajjal was released on earth, in a day which is like a year, this is the first stage of his mission, I say, and listen carefully, that Dajjal now uses Britain in his first stage to pursue his mission to eventually rule the world from Jerusalem. Listen carefully to my words. When he uses Britain, Britain is transformed into a ruling state in the world. And so the world experienced Pax Britannica, and the sterling pound became the international currency. The world is now very familiar with my view on this subject. I'm the first one, I believe, to have suggested this, and it has been largely accepted. However, let me point out, when Imran gives an opinion, no one should accept that opinion. Let me warn you, no one should accept my opinion unless and until you are convinced that it is correct. When I give an opinion, I can be right, I can be wrong. Only Allah is free from error. All the rest of us have to revise our opinions sometime. And so my opinion is that the island of Tamim ad-Dari is Britain. Now, the question has been raised several times. But the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, pointing to the east, 20 times to the east, that Dajjal will come from the east, he will come. And Britain is to the west. So we are confused. Could you kindly explain? Well, that's how some people ask me politely. Others don't do that. Others don't do that. The answer is this: east and west, and north and south are directions in space. And they are directions in our world of space and time. Are there other worlds of space and time? Yes, there are. There are 7 of them, samawat. Do we have east and west and north and south in those samawat? I don't know. And you don't know. But when Dajjal comes from the east, the Messenger of Allah is speaking about east in this world of space and time. And so it is only when Dajjal appears in our world of space and time, which would be at the end of his mission. When Dajjal is released, he will live on earth for 40 days. One day like a year, one day like a month, one day like a week. وَسَائِرُ أَيَّامِهِ كَأَيَّامِكُمْ. One day like a year, one day like a month, one day like a week, and all his days like your days, meaning all the rest of his days. So when stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3 have been completed, number 1, Dajjal has to be released. Number 2, stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3 have to be completed. And then he is born into this world of Jewish parents who never had any children. And he grows up as a Jew. And he would be a young man, a human being. Yes, he's going to appear as a human being. A young man, powerfully built, with curly hair. It is at that time he declares that I am Al-Masih, the Messiah. It is only after he declares that he is Al-Masih, the Messiah, that we will recognize that this is the Messiah. This is the false Messiah, excuse me. Before that we would not know. So it is at that time that he would come from the east. But prior to that, stage 1, I say the island is Britain. I hope that this answers the question. When his day is like a year, how long a period of time will that be? Oh, but I have given only one answer. Others have given many answers. But Imran Hussein has given only one answer. And I have said it's going to be a long period of time. I never said it's going to be 1,000 years. Others may say so, and they will defend their views. And they have the right to express their views. All I have said is going to be a long time. And then in a day which is like a month, and the United States replaces Britain, I have said it's going to be a shorter period of time. And then a day which is like a week, in my opinion, Israel replaces the United States. I said it's going to be a very short period of time. We can, of course, engage in plausible guesswork. But it's guesswork. And my guesswork is that Israel would rule the world as a third ruling state for maybe 20, 30 years. But would the world of Islam submit to Israel? Oh, the part-time Muslims, the ones who are so proud of being moderate Muslims, they will not stand up against Israel. But the true Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam will never submit to Israel as a ruling state. No. We will oppose Israel and we will defend ourselves against Israel until the last Muslim stands on the face of the earth. We will never bow, we will never submit to Israel. Next question pertains to something that is a matter of very great importance in Pakistan. And there are many in Pakistan who are going to be listening to this session. Ghazwa is a war in which the Prophet ﷺ participated. Ghazwa. Otherwise, war is harb. For some reason, which I cannot explain, there is this tendency to use the word Ghazwa for a war which will take place in Akhiru Zaman against a Hind. Hind is that entire area which today comprises India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, that is Hind. And there are ahadith, and I am not in a position to assess the authenticity of these ahadith. No. That a Muslim army will conquer Hind. A Muslim army fighting in Akhiru Zaman will have to be an army of mujahideen. Mujahideen. I don't know, and perhaps you can help me and correct me, whether any armed force of any country in the world today, including the Pakistani armed forces, have ever described themselves or will ever describe themselves as mujahideen. Do please correct me, and do please send me the evidence that the head of the armed forces of Pakistan ever described his soldiers as mujahideen engaged in jihad. I don't think armed forces of secular nation states use that kind of a language. No. Secondly, the army which will conquer Hind, and today India is Israel's most strategic ally in the world after the United States. So of course, if this is going to take place, I'll be very happy about it. Oh yes, this is Israel's most strategic ally. And if a Muslim army is going to conquer Hind, it'll have to be an army that is also opposed to Israel. Is the Pakistan armed forces like that? Correct me if I'm wrong. But since 9/11, it's almost 10 years now since 9/11. Since 9/11, the Zionist movement, the Judeo-Christian Zionist movement, which today controls the government of the United States and controls Britain and controls NATO, launched what they call the war on terror. And you and I know that the war on terror was actually war on Islam. The only people who don't know that are the governments and the people who control newspapers and television. But the rest of us know that war on terror was war on Islam. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the Pakistan Armed Forces have actively supported the American war on terror for the last 10 years and have received handsome rewards in US dollars for that. Is this the armed force that is going to conquer India? I don't think people with even 5 rupees worth of intelligence would accept such a proposition. It is not my intention to be disrespectful at all to the soldiers, to the men in the armed forces of Pakistan. I'm sure that I probably have lots of fans amongst the armed forces in Pakistan. Those, however, who command strategic decision-making in the Pakistan Armed Forces and who control strategic decision-making in the government have for the longest while remained on the side of the Zionist movement. And so I say you have to be actually living in Disneyland to believe that the Pakistan Armed Forces are going to be the force that is going to conquer India. Excuse me for my language, Pakistani people, but that's nonsense. The next question, are you, Imran Hussain, are you a Shia? No, I'm not Shia. Are the Shia Muslims? My answer is yes. Only Muslims are allowed to perform the Hajj. And to the best of my understanding and knowledge, the Shias have consistently been allowed to perform the Hajj throughout the 1400 years of the history of this Ummah. I don't know if there were 1 or 2 moments where they were not allowed, but that's irrelevant. Because for 99% of the time, the Shia were performing the Hajj. And even to this day, the Shia are performing the Hajj. And therefore the ijma' of this Ummah is that the Shia are Muslims. And I think it's a little bit late now to come with a fatwa that the Shia are kuffar. I am not Shia, but I consider them to be Muslims. And I relate with all my Muslim brothers and sisters the way I ought to relate to them. If a Muslim brother or sister is on the path of error, then I must correct them. But I must not correct them with hatred in my heart. I must not correct them in a destructive way. I must correct them with love in my heart, and I must correct them in a constructive way. No, I'm not Shia, and I'm not Deobandi, and I am not Barelvi, and I am not Salafi, and I am not Tabligh Jamaat. I am not a part of this sectarian divide, and I don't want to be a part of that sectarianism. I abhor it. On the contrary, I am struggling to build a model of a Muslim village. Everybody knows that. And in this village, I want the Sufi and the Salafi to live together in the village as brothers. And so I am struggling for unity amongst Muslims. And I recognize governments can't unite the Muslims. Nope. I recognize that the only thing that you can unite the Muslims is the Quran and Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And so once we stay firmly with the Quran and with Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, I have confidence in my heart that we can live together despite our differences. There is a hadith about Dajjal. We're moving from subject to subject, not consistently, so it'll keep you awake. You won't fall asleep. There is a hadith that Dajjal will be followed by 70,000 Jews from Isfahan wearing their Persian shawls. You heard the hadith? Huh? Good, you're shaking your heads. My opinion on this hadith, and remember, when you find a hadith pertaining to Akhirul Zaman, and Imran Hussein does not touch on those ahadith, the implication is that he is not as yet comfortable that he has penetrated the hadith. There are some ahadith pertaining to Akhirul Zaman that you'll only understand after certain events unfold in the historical process. And so, little by little, I am moving forward. Little by little, one step at a time. When I get a hadith that I believe I understand, I then offer my opinion. But I qualify. Do not accept my opinion, please, until you are convinced that it is correct. Dajjal will be followed by 70,000 Jews from Isfahan, wearing their Persian shawls. And so, immediately, I come to the conclusion that these will be Jews who will have Muslim names. Because they're coming from Isfahan. And they're dressed up as Iranians, Persians, not as Jews. So these will be a hidden force emerging out of Iran that will be supporting Dajjal. Externally appearing to be Muslims, but internally supporters of Dajjal. And so I am anticipating now that there are going to be great changes in Iran. And through this talk I'm warning the Iranian government and the Iranian people that the attack is coming. Yes. Because I hold that the Iranian government is sincere in its opposition to the oppressors who now rule the world. You can have other views, but this is my view, that the Iranian government is sincere in its opposition to Israel. I reject the view that the Iranian government is insincere and they have some secret pact with Israel and they're just throwing dust in our eyes. No, Imran Hussein does not think like that. An Iranian government which is sincere in its opposition to Israel is not something that Dajjal will accept. No. He wants to use the Shia divide. He wants to exploit the Shia sectarian movement to his advantage. And so he needs a government in Iran that will be first Shia and then Muslim. And so I expect that the attack will take place on Iran. Of course, the attack would be for destroying the nuclear plants. That's all the hype about nuclear plants and nuclear weapons and so on. But I want to suggest that the more important reason for the attack on Iran would be to remove this present government and to replace it with a Karzai-type Afghanistan government in Iran that will submit to the Zionists and therefore become camp followers of Dajjal. And that is when this hadith will be fulfilled, about 70,000 Jews. When Iran is attacked, which I expect to take place this year or next year, because that's why all is drum beating about 2012. I also expect that they have already groomed an Imam al-Mahdi. They have chosen somebody and they have programmed him and groomed him and he is going to announce that he is Imam al-Mahdi. Israeli Mossad work. And I expect large numbers of Iranian people are going to be deceived because they are waiting and they are expecting. And the Iranian government is fueling the fire with announcements about the imminent arrival of Imam al-Mahdi. But he will not be Imam al-Mahdi, oh no. He will be a false Mahdi. And we have to be very careful about that. The true Imam al-Mahdi, in my opinion, Allah will never cause him to emerge until Dajjal has completed his mission or is very close to the completion of his mission. Only at that time will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cause the Imam to emerge. And when the Imam emerges, only then would Nabi Isa alayhi salam return. The two are contemporaneous. The age of Imam al-Mahdi is also the age of the return of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. And we are probably 25, 30 years away from that now. There is a question here about voting in elections. And on my website you will find an essay. Can Muslims vote in elections of the modern secular state? Okay. I have devoted a long time to the study of Akhirul Zaman, to the study of Islamic eschatology. And I have come to the conclusion that we now live in a world in which unless you remain faithful to Allah and His Messenger, you're going to worship Dajjal. There is no third possibility. Either you are faithfully worshipping Allah and following His Messenger, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, or you're going to worship Dajjal. I have come to the conclusion that most of mankind today are worshipping Dajjal. And so we have to constantly pray to Allah for protection from the fitna of Dajjal. How do we worship Dajjal? Dajjal is not going to come in front of you and declare, I am God. Come on, you dum-dum. Dajjal is not a fool. Pharaoh will declare, Ana Rabbukumul A'la. But Dajjal is not going to say, I am the Lord Most High. No. Dajjal operates with deception. He gets you to worship him without knowing that you are worshipping him. The modern state, the modern secular state, which has taken over the whole world, was created by Dajjal. I have no doubt about that. The Quran informs us that Allah is Al-Malik. In political terminology, sovereignty belongs to Allah, Al-Malik. The modern secular state says, nope, that's wrong. Allah is not Al-Malik. Sovereignty belongs to the state. The state is sovereign. That is shirk. This is Allah's creation. And when you submit to that and you accept it, you're no longer worshipping Allah, you're worshipping Dajjal. When you vote in elections for the modern secular state. I'm not stopping you from voting, no. And you have the freedom, you have the right to reject my views. Of course. Everybody can reject my view. Nobody has to accept it. But this is my view. And I should have the freedom to express my view. And once I have the freedom, alhamdulillah, you can choose to reject it. That when you vote in the elections, you are now endorsing the shirk and therefore participating in the shirk. Now, in the same way that I made that challenge on paper money, I said that paper currency is bogus, it's fraudulent, it's haram. And I said I have studied the subject, and the subject is not taught in Jamiatul Azhar. Excuse me, not supposed to raise my voice tonight. Islamic international monetary economics is not taught in Jamiatul Azhar. It's not taught in the Darul Uloom. So the shuyukh and the Maulana and the muftis and the ustad who graduate from the Darul Uloom have not studied this subject, and yet giving fatwa on paper currencies. I have studied it, and I am saying it is bogus and fraudulent and haram. And people are free to reject my view. But remember, I have given this gentle warning that if you come after me with boxing gloves, and if you make the mistake of wanting to prevent me from speaking, bar me, put me in a corner, silence me, then when I can show patience no more, then I will challenge you. This is not my style to challenge people, no. But at that time I will challenge you. On this issue of paper money, on that issue of the shirk of the modern state, that if you are so confident that you are correct and I am wrong, well then come and let us both raise our hands and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with utmost humility and fervor. O Allah, kindly curse with an eternal curse and punish with eternal punishment whosoever is wrong on this issue. I hope I never have to do that. Where is the shirk in the paper money? It's simple. Only Allah creates wealth out of nothing. Only Allah creates wealth out of nothing. Today Dajjal, who is the author, the architect of this monetary system, this is Dajjal's. This paper money is Dajjal's. Today Dajjal is creating wealth out of nothing. And if you do not understand, then outside there is my little booklet. It was 55 pages, now I've expanded it to 60 pages. The new edition, Islam, no, what? The gold dinar and silver dirham, Islam and the future of money. Next question, we've got to go a little faster now. You have been speaking about the Muslim village. Has any Muslim village been established as yet? We, myself and my students, we have plans to establish only two. Only two. And we hope that these will be models. The Muslim village has to be out of the city. Out of the city. In the remote countryside. What you call in Malaysia, kampung. Kampung. I hope the people in France and Britain will learn the word kampung now. It's a nice word. Kampung, meaning village. Malay word for village. It has to be the remote village. So it poses no threat to the city. We're not threatening you. Are you so scared of us that you would not allow even a few of us to go and live in the remote countryside. Shame on you. You're going to send the police after us in the remote countryside simply because we want to live as the Muslims in a different way from you? Is that your democracy? MashaAllah. That's all we want to do. To live in accordance with the Quran and the Sunnah. Not to be preaching Islam all the time, to establish Islam. So this is a micro-Islamic community. We do not have the Khilafah, but we are a people who in our hearts are loyal to the Khilafah. We do not have loyalty to your modern secular state. Our loyalty is to Islam and to the Khilafah. And we have confidence that Khilafah is going to come back tomorrow when Imam al-Mahdi emerges. What do we do in the meantime? In the meantime, we establish micro-Khilafah. Small communities, living very peacefully in the remote countryside. We're not going to touch your money, your bogus, your fraudulent, your haram paper and electronic money. No. In our kampung, we're going to bring back the Sunnah money. When we talk about Sunnah money, they don't even understand. Governor of Central Bank doesn't know the subject. They didn't teach him at university. What is Sunnah money? One village is being established in Cape Town by my students, and the second one in my Caribbean island of Trinidad. But there are many here in Malaysia who love the idea. There's a sister, I don't know if she's present here tonight. She's just 26 years of age. And she's already bought land in the remote countryside. And she has another sister who's joined with her. And they got a vehicle in which you can transport animals. And these two women are taking animals into their little kampung because of this idea of the Muslim village. Right here in Malaysia. There's another sister who came to me. These are women, not men. These are women. She wants to establish, and she's probably going to be listening to this lecture on YouTube, and mashallah for her. She wants to establish, she heard me talk about a weekend Muslim village. So families will come on the weekend, Yawmul Jum'ah, and then they spend the weekend, and then they return to their home before you have to start work for the next week. So she wants to establish this weekend village in Jendabai. And I say, mashallah, what a beautiful place and what a beautiful idea. You don't have to establish a new village from scratch. No. I get so many emails, and many of them from Europeans and Americans, Germans, French, Holland. Sheikh, we want to come to your village. I say, go to any village where Muslims live. And you must have a joy in your heart to live with your own Muslim brothers and sisters. Don't run away from them. Go to any village located in the remote countryside. And then when you get there, try very gently to transform it into a Muslim village. You know you're in a Muslim village when you get rid of the paper money and you're using Sunnah money. And if you fail, then go to another village. Next question, how can I become your student? MashaAllah, I was a student of a great teacher. Who was my teacher? Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari, rahimahullah. Go to the internet, go to Google and write his name. Dr. Muhammad Fadlur Rahman, F-A-Z-L-U-R, Ansari, and you see a website devoted to him. And over there you'll see his books. And you see his major work, the Quranic foundations and structure of Muslim society. But before reading that book, I suggest you go to the pharmacy and buy a bottle of Tylenol tablets. You don't have Tylenol? What do you have? For headache. What tablet do you use for headache? Tylenol? Panadol. Ah. Go to the pharmacy and buy a bottle of Panadol tablets, because he writes in a very difficult style. You get a headache. But it's a great work, great book. And if today, by Allah's kindness, I am preaching the religion the way I am, it is because of that great teacher. You want to be my student? This is what you have to do. You have to take a decision. I'm devoting this life that Allah has given to me. I'm devoting this life to Him. So others will work and buy their Mercedes-Benz motor car, and they're going to have lovely homes in Gombak. And you will not have that. You will have a little kanchil. And you might be renting all your life. But the sacrifice that you make of the dunya is what is required in order to pursue knowledge and to emerge tomorrow as a scholar of Islam who will preach the deen. If you do not plant, you will not reap. You got to plant. You can begin by reading my books, by listening to my lectures. Many of the things I now teach you, I never had anyone to teach me. No. But when I return home, inshallah, which should be about 1 year from now, I am building a student village that in Malaysia you call a punduk. Punduk, yeah. And so you can come. A Malaysian gets only 1 month visa. And then you can apply for an extension, you get an additional 1 month. So when I enter Malaysia, they give me 1 month. And if I go and apply for an extension, I get 1 more month, then I have to leave. And then I can come back in. So long as you have a visa, you can stay. We build huts. That's what the Punduk has, huts. And in our huts, you'll have cooking facilities. So a husband and wife can stay in a hut, or 2 men can stay, 2 women can stay. And we give you the groceries, but you must do your own cooking. So if you come from Indonesia, we want to taste some masakan Padang. So you do your own cooking. You have no expense other than your travel expense. And we will teach over a period of 3 weeks. 1 course of lectures, 1 subject, would take about 3 weeks. Sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes 1 month. And so you choose which one you want to attend. You take leave from your job and you come, inshallah. Is Imam Mahdi, or where did you study Islam? My teacher established an institute of Islamic studies in Pakistan called the Alimia Institute of Islamic Studies. But this was not your normal Darul Uloom. No. Because when I was a student in that institute, I had teachers coming to teach me the Islamic philosophy of history. Where in a Darul Uloom today would you find students being taught the Islamic philosophy of history? It is because Dr. Burhan Ahmad Farooqi rahimahullah had a PhD in philosophy. He taught me the Islamic philosophy of history from the Quran. That today I can give the lecture Islam and the end of history. Go onto the internet, YouTube, and you can listen to it. In our institute we studied the Islamic philosophy of science. In that institute we had to study the foundations of modern Western civilization. Which is why I am comfortable now when I study modern Western politics, Western economics, monetary economics and so on, because I got the foundation from the Alimia Institute of Islamic Studies. May Allah bless my teacher, blessed memory, rahimahullah. Is Imam al-Mahdi already born? I don't know. No one knows. And the only way you will know that is if Allah informs you. He's not informed me. But secondly, and this is not arrogance, I'm not interested. This is not arrogance. No, no, no. I am not interested in knowing whether he is born or not, because that is not important to me. Whenever he is born, Allah will protect him. And Allah will keep his identity secret. So I don't want to be sharing in that secret. So why do you ask me? When Allah chooses for him to come out, and that will be a time when a Muslim Khalifa will die, and here the word Khalifa means a ruler, and I believe it will be a Saudi ruler, and when he dies there would be disagreement concerning succession. You can easily see what is coming in Saudi Arabia, with all those 5,000 princes vying for succession. Maybe when Abdullah dies, the next one will come, and that will be when it happens. Who knows? It is at that time when there is disagreement concerning succession that a man will come out of Medina and hurry to Mecca. So he's not coming out of Indonesia, coming out of Medina and hurry to Mecca. Okay? That would be Imam al-Mahdi, who will proclaim himself to be Imam al-Mahdi. My opinion is that we're still about 20-25 years away from that event. Next question. The Prophet said that Dajjal will not enter Mecca and Medina. Dajjal will not enter Mecca and Medina. The angels will prevent him from entering. And I say that Dajjal is already in Mecca and Medina. If you go to perform Umrah, you see Dajjal everywhere you turn. Meaning, you see the footprints of Dajjal, you see the evidence of Dajjal everywhere you turn. Go to Mecca and Medina today. What the hadith is saying is that at that time, when Dajjal will appear as a human being, at that time when he attacks Mecca and Medina, he will be attacking while riding on a donkey. You know about a donkey. And the donkey will fly, it has wings, and fly faster than the clouds. And the donkey will have his ears stretched out wide. Dajjal will be riding on that donkey. We have interpreted it to be fighter aircraft. But you don't have to accept our opinion. No. You can, if you wish, choose to wait for the flying donkey. We have interpreted it as the fighter aircraft. The Dajjal controls the skies. If you ask the Libyan leader, he'll tell you Dajjal controls the skies. So at that time when Israel attacks, Makkah and Medina will be barred from them. They will not be able to attack Makkah and Medina because the angels will prevent them. Next question, will Gog and Magog be released into the world only after Nabi Isa alayhi salam kills Dajjal? The hadith is in Sahih Muslim that after Nabi Isa alayhi salam kills Dajjal, at that time Allah will send Gog and Magog. It never says that Allah will release Gog and Magog. The word for release is located in the Quran. In Surah Al-Anbiya, وَحَرَامٌ عَلَى قَرْيَةٍ أَهْلَكْنَاهَا أَنَّهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ حَتَّى إِذَا فُتِحَتْ يَأْجُوجُ وَمَأْجُوجُ وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ حَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ. There is this town, Allah destroyed it, the people of the town were expelled, Allah placed a ban on them, they could never return to that town to reclaim it as their own, tabule, until Gog and Magog are futihat, released. And then they spread out in all directions, and with their invincible power, they take control of the world. They've already done that now. Then you see these people returning to the town to reclaim it. Which town? My answer is Jerusalem. You don't have to accept my answer. No. So this word is in the Quran. And that word in the hadith is ba'atha, to send. At that time when they sent, whatever is left of the water in the Sea of Galilee, they will start to drink it and it will be dry. The Sea of Galilee will become dry at that time. The Sea of Galilee is now close to drying up. So Gog and Magog are not going to be released after Nabi Isa alayhi salam comes and kills Dajjal. That is false. Next question, it is mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet that when the sun rises from the west, the door of Tawbah will no longer be open. How would you interpret this hadith, having stated that the sun has already risen from the west? My view, my understanding of this sign of the last day, you know the 10 major signs. I'm not going to test you tonight, so you get away. Number 1, Dajjal. Number 2, Gog and Magog. Number 3, the return of the son of Mary. Number 4, Dukhan, smoke. Number 5, Dabbatul Ard, the creature, the beast of the land. Number 6, that the sun would rise from the west. Number 7, 8 and 9, 3, Khusuf, plural of Khas, an earthquake, shaking of the earth and sinking down. 1 in the east, 1 in the west, and the third one in Arabia. You had one in Damansiri, UK a few years ago. And number 10, that the fire will come out of Yemen and drive people to the place of assembly. This one about the sun rising from the west. I am getting lots of emails, so many, from people who are presenting so much sophisticated argument concerning polar magnetism and providing evidence that one day the earth is going to stop spinning in the direction it is now spinning and is going to spin in the opposite direction. I am not stopping you from having that view. That's your choice. It is just that I differ with you. Am I not allowed to differ? Huh? Even if 999 out of every 1,000 hold the view that the sun is literally going to rise from the west one day, that's their view. Why can't I have my view? And I am not interested in all of this polar magnetism arguments. It's irrelevant to me. All things are possible with Allah. He is fa'alul lima yurid. But my primary source of guidance is the Quran. And so it is to the Quran you must turn if you want to convince me. The Quran informs me that the sun rises from the east. The Quran says so, that the sun rises from the east. It does in Malaysia, doesn't it? From the east. Yeah, okay. And the Quran further tells us, لا تبديل لخلق الله, that there is no change in Allah's creation. So nature is uniform. And so a literal understanding of this hadith would be in conflict with the Quran. This is my opinion. I don't see why I should not be entitled to have my opinion. You can differ with me, I don't mind. What about Tawbah? I said that the sun is already rising from the west. The hadith is speaking about a false sunrise. The true sunrise from the east is Allah's sunrise. And the false sunrise from the west is Dajjal's sunrise. So where do we see Dajjal's sunrise from the west? I say Dajjal's sunrise from the west is modern Western civilization. Modern Western civilization shines like a sunrise that there's never been in history. It is absolutely unique. There's never been anything in history comparable to modern Western civilization. And the only way I can explain modern Western civilization is by accepting that Dajjal is the architect. That it has risen from the west and it constitutes a false sunrise, and that this is the fulfillment of the prophecy of the 10 signs of the last day. That the door of Tawbah should be closed, this is a more difficult one. My view, and I can be wrong, is that Allah's messenger is not talking about Tawbah for all of mankind. In Akhirul Zaman, one people stand out. One people. And they are Banu Israel. And they have consistently said they will not appear before Allah on Judgment Day singly for judgment. No. We know that we will go for judgment one by one, each person singly. But Banu Israel says, no, we are the chosen people of Allah. And so we are going to be judged as a people, not as individual Jews. And as a people we'll get salvation, and as a people we'll all enter into Jannah. So it is as a people that the door to Tawbah is now closed for you. And now Tawbah is available only for individuals, not for the community. and Allah knows best. Can we consider HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, as Dajjal's means on controlling the weather? Oh yes, no doubt. The Prophet said that Dajjal is going to control the weather. He caused the rain to fall, and he stopped the rain from falling. And so the Western control over weather today is certainly the fulfillment of that prophecy about Dajjal's control of the weather. But you cannot accept that unless you also accept that Dajjal has been released. Okay? Modern medical treatment and medicine. That's another hadith, not the one about weather. The other hadith, and you're lucky I can't stop to ask you questions, you're lucky tonight. The other hadith is that Dajjal is going to chop a man in half. You heard it? Yeah. He's going to chop a man in half and then bring him back to life. And when he does that, now do you believe that I am the Lord? People will believe, they'll worship him now, that he is Allah, because he can chop a man in half and bring him back to life. But Dajjal is already doing that. And people are already worshipping him instead of Allah. Go to any hospital today and you see the surgery. Heart transplant, kidney transplant. Tomorrow it might even be brain transplant. Huh? It is equivalent to chopping a man in half and bringing him back to life. And then the shirk. People would say, if you turn off that life support machine, he will die. And the hospital will tell you he will die, because the hospital wants, the hospital, the longer the machine goes on, the more money they make. And you will believe it. How can I turn off the machine? If I do it, he'll die. Well, you dumb. You are now believing that the life and death is in the hands of the machine. The machine decides who will live, and the machine decides who will die. But we Muslims have a different belief from that nonsense. We believe that life and death are in Allah's hands. None can die unless Allah ordains death. None will live unless Allah ordains life. And yet you say, if he didn't have that operation, he would be dead. If we didn't take him to that hospital, he would be dead. If he didn't have this treatment from this doctor, he would be dead. And in the process, you commit shirk. You're worshipping Dajjal without even knowing that you're doing it. Next question, there are ahadith in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Okay. He wants to know what criteria do I use for choosing some ahadith pertaining to Akhirul Zaman and to interpret and explain them, and not mentioning other ahadith. Well, I already explained that my knowledge of the subject is increasing one step at a time, little by little, little by little. It is Allah who gives understanding. If you're constantly thinking and thinking and thinking, my wife complains. Oh yes, even when I'm with her, she and I alone, the man is planning another lecture. He's writing another book. She complains. So, if you make the effort, then one day Allah will give you. Sometimes I go into the bathroom. When I come out with a new idea. So it is only as knowledge advances that I'm able to understand a hadith. And if I do not speak on a hadith, the implication is that I'm not as yet comfortable that I penetrated that hadith. There is a well-known Sahih hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said that you're going to make an alliance with Rum. Is it in Surah Rum? Rum. And in that surah we are told at the very first ayah that Rum was defeated. Rum was defeated. Did you hear that? Rum was defeated. But in a few years' time, Rum will be victorious. Who is Rum? Now, if you tell me that Rome is Rome, R-O-M-E, I would suggest you go and live in Disneyland and never come back. If you believe that Rome is Rome, R-O-M-E, go and live in Disneyland and never come back. Excuse me for raising my voice. At the time when the Quran was revealed, who was it who was defeated? Was it a city in Italy, you dum-dum? Why don't you do a little bit of research before you come to this foolish conclusion? Excuse me. No, even 5 rupees worth of a little bit of research. You'll know that when the Quran said that Rome was defeated, the Quran was not talking about a city in Italy called Rome. No. The Quran was talking about the Byzantine Christian Empire, which had its capital city in Constantinople. I mean, only 5 minutes worth of research you need for that. And so don't use the word Romans. No, they're not Romans. Romans are a people who have some kind of a connection with Rome. Otherwise I have to change the English language. And these are in Constantinople. This is not Rome. So these are not Romans. So stop mistranslating the Quran, please. It is the Byzantine, Eastern, Orthodox Christian Empire. Where is Rome today? It's no longer in Constantinople because the Byzantine Empire no longer exists. But the Eastern Christian Orthodox Church and religion still exists. That is Rome. Who it is who now leads that community of Eastern Christian Orthodox believers? The answer is Russia. That's the answer. And so when the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, that you will make an alliance with Rome, he was certainly not talking about a Yankee alliance. Someone should tell that to the Pakistan Armed Forces. He was not talking about an alliance with Britain, or with France, or with Germany, or with Israel. When he spoke about an alliance with Rome, he was referring to an alliance with the Eastern Christian Orthodox Church. And therefore to those who now rule over that community, which is Russia. Russia. And so a Muslim alliance with Russia is anticipated by the Prophet ﷺ, and it will come. How soon this will happen? He also said that you will conquer Constantinople. And what a wonderful army that would be. نِعْمَ هَذَا الْجَيْشِ وَنِعْمَ هَذَا الْأَمِيرُ. What a wonderful army that would be, and what a wonderful Amir that would be, who will conquer Constantinople. Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam used the name, in this hadith, he used the name Constantinople. If the Prophet of Allah called it Constantinople, why did you change the name to Istanbul? I know the answer. Because you want to hide this hadith. That's why you change the name to Istanbul. But we should refer to it by the name that Nabi Muhammad ﷺ used, Constantinople. This has to be a conquest of Constantinople in Akhirul Zaman. It cannot be that conquest which took place so many years ago, 100 years ago. This conquest of Constantinople will come, I believe, when the next attempt at a coup d'etat takes place in Turkey. You know, Turkey always have the coup d'etats. But you now have a Muslim government that is attempting to establish Islam and is opposed to Israel in Turkey. And you have an armed forces in Turkey which are supporting Israel. And so you're heading for a showdown. Whenever the effort is made by the armed forces to take over the country and overthrow the government, I think that's the cue for civil war. And the outcome of that civil war is what is prophesied in this hadith, the conquest of Constantinople. When that conquest of Constantinople takes place, NATO will lose Constantinople. NATO will therefore lose its control over the Bosphorus. At this time, Russian ships, Russian submarines, Russian nuclear submarines cannot pass through the Bosphorus to enter into the Mediterranean Sea, because NATO controls them. But once that NATO control is destroyed by that Muslim army, and Constantinople is liberated, and you have an alliance with Russia, as prophesied in the hadith, then the Russian navy can enter into the Mediterranean. The Russian submarines can enter into the Mediterranean from the Black Sea. And then the contest with Israel will become a more even-handed contest once you have nuclear-armed submarines in the Mediterranean. I think we're going to have to stop there. I've not answered all the questions, but we'll schedule another day, not this masjid, another masjid inshallah, and we'll attempt to answer the rest of the questions. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.